In every nation, behind every currency, beneath every promise of prosperity, there exists a machine most people never see. A machine that doesn't look like technology, doesn't sound like industry, and doesn't live in any one place. It hides in policy, in interest rates, in accounting tricks, in the silent agreements between governments and those who control credit. This is the hidden debt machine. And once you notice it, you can never unsee it. It begins with a simple illusion that governments spend tax money. They don't. Not anymore. Modern states operate on something far more powerful. They operate on debt. Debt created from nothing, backed by nothing, sustained by nothing, but belief and belief. It's the most fragile form of currency ever invented. Long before today's financial systems existed, debt was personal. Humans owed each other grain, gold, livestock. But somewhere in history, rulers discovered a dangerous idea. If you control the records of debt, you control the people who owe it. Empires built their power on this idea. But no empire perfected it like the modern world. After the World Wars, nations needed rebuilding. They needed resources they didn't have, money they couldn't create, power they couldn't reach. So they turned to borrowing. And borrowing became policy. Policy became dependence. Dependence became identity. Soon, every nation lived on the same lifeline. Endless credit. The machine grew in silence. Central banks learned they could create money with a signature. Commercial banks learned they could create more money by lending what didn't exist yet. Governments learned they could spend without asking citizens. And the public learned nothing because they weren't meant to. Then came the moment the machine evolved, the rise of fractional banking. A system where every deposit could become multiple loans. Every loan could become new deposits. Every deposit could repeat the cycle. Money multiplied without limit. And debt became the world's most profitable product. As the 20th century ended and the new millennium began, the machine expanded globally. Nations once cautious now embraced borrowing as growth. Countries competed not on resources but on creditworthiness. Politicians discovered voters love free benefits, and free benefits can be funded by invisible debt. Central banks discovered markets panic without constant stimulus, and banks discovered they could sell debt as investments. Then derivatives appeared. Complex contracts that multiplied risk into the trillions. Debt no longer needed people. It could clone itself. It could stack itself. It could exist without existing. Governments didn't understand it. Regulators couldn't track it. Banks pretended they controlled it. And then it all collapsed. In 2008, the machine cracked open. And for a moment, the world saw the truth. The global economy was built on leverage so massive that even a small shock could destroy entire nations. Markets froze. Credit died. Confidence evaporated. The machine was on its knees. It could have ended there. But instead, those in power rebuilt it larger, more complex, more dependent than ever. Interest rates were slashed. Money printing began. Governments borrowed more in one decade than in the previous century. The world convinced itself this was temporary. It wasn't. It became permanent. And with permanence came a new form of extraction. People didn't feel it at first. Extraction didn't arrive as taxes. It arrived as rising prices, shrinking wages, stagnant savings, ballooning rents, growing personal debt. Everything became slightly more expensive every year, slowly enough not to alarm the public, but fast enough to transfer wealth from households to the system that created the money. This is the invisible cost of the debt machine, inflation that isn't accidental. A slow leak in purchasing power that funds governments without ever being voted on. It is the quietest form of taxation. Because no one sends a bill, you simply wake up one day and realize you can buy less than you used to. Every attempted fix only worsened the cycle. Lower rates created bubbles. Higher rates crushed borrowers. Printing money caused inflation. Stopping the printing caused recessions. The machine punished every solution because the machine cannot survive stability. It thrives in imbalance. Today, the pattern repeats. Global debt has reached historic levels. Countries borrowed just to pay interest. Central banks manipulate markets to prevent panic. Inflation erodes savings faster than wages can grow. And ordinary people wonder why life feels harder even as economies claim to grow. The truth is simple. The system is not failing. It is functioning exactly as designed. A design older than you think, more fragile than it appears, and more interconnected than anyone can control. The debt machine has no villain. It has no captain. It has no off switch. Runs because the world no longer knows how to function without it. And the longer it runs, the greater the cost. Not to governments, not to banks, but to every individual whose wealth, time, and labor dissolves silently into a system that extracts value without ever showing its face. The debt machine has evolved into something far more insidious than simple loans or bonds. It now operates invisibly, silently, through mechanisms most people never consider. Student loans, mortgage chains, credit cards, car loans, even government-backed programs, pensions, and social benefits. All tether individuals to the system in ways that feel normal but are designed to perpetuate dependency. Every payment you make, every loan you take, every financial decision you believe is yours alone feeds the machine. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. Debt generates interest. Interest generates new borrowing. Borrowing generates more debt. And the loop continues endlessly. History shows a repeating pattern. A small shock occurs. A bank fails. A market crashes. An oil price spikes. Governments intervene. Banks are bailed out. Central banks inject liquidity. The public breathes a sigh of relief, thinking the crisis has passed. But in reality, each intervention strengthens the machine. It borrows more. It prints more. It inflates more. The short-term fix becomes a long-term trap. Commercial banks, central banks, and shadow banks are not merely intermediaries. They are architects of the extraction system. Through fractional reserve lending, derivative markets, and structured financial instruments, banks create money from nothing, expand debt exponentially, concentrate wealth at the top, and increase public dependency. They operate in shadows most cannot see. They profit from every crisis, and they ensure that when a reset comes, the consequences fall on ordinary people, not the system itself. The debt machine is invisible because it hides in what people trust most. Banks, governments, currency. Most people don't realize it, but government debt used to be measured in millions, then billions, then trillions. Now the numbers are so large they barely feel real. Governments no longer ask, how do we repay this? They ask, how do we manage the illusion? The illusion that the debt is controllable, the illusion that the system is stable, the illusion that everything will continue as normal. The truth is simple. The debt is no longer meant to be paid back. It is meant to be inflated away, not by force, but by slowly reducing the purchasing power of the currency. And in that slow fade, the wealth of the population evaporates not in a crash, not in a collapse, but in silence. Most people think money reflects value. Not anymore. Today, money reflects policy. Policy reflects debt. Debt reflects political survival, which means modern wealth is no longer earned, it is engineered. Engineered through interest rates set in secret. Engineered through liquidity injections hidden in technical language. Engineered through inflation targets justified as economic management. Every adjustment extracts something small, a little less purchasing power, a little more dependence, a little deeper into the cycle. Until one day, people wake up and realize the value of their time has quietly disappeared. The machine does not slow down, does not rest, it does not negotiate. It only expands until the pressure becomes too much for the illusion to hold. And now we enter the era where the illusion itself begins to crack. Every debt system in history reaches a point where promises exceed reality, and that point is now. When global debt crossed $100 trillion, analysts said it was manageable. When it passed $200 trillion, they said it was concerning. When it surged beyond $300 trillion, they stopped commenting. Because no one can explain a number that large. Not honestly, not mathematically. Not without admitting that the only way the system survives is by creating even more debt. Governments borrow to pay for old borrowing. Countries borrow to avoid default. Banks borrow to stay solvent. Corporations borrow to buy their own stock. People borrow to live the same life they had 10 years ago. Debt isn't growth anymore. Debt is oxygen. The moment the machine stops, everything suffocates. Politicians don't need force. They don't need fear. They don't need punishment. All they need is for people to depend on the system that extracts from them. And nothing creates dependence like rising living costs. When prices increase faster than wages, people stop saving. When savings die, borrowing becomes unavoidable. When borrowing becomes unavoidable, financial freedom becomes impossible. And when freedom dies, control becomes effortless. Every modern economy is now trapped in a repeating cycle: inflate, debt trap, harvest. This cycle captures entire nations. Once a country enters it, it never leaves. The next system is not being created to fix the problems of the debt machine. It is being created to preserve it. Its foundation will be digital. It's not just online banking or mobile wallets, but programmable money that tracks, restricts, expires, enforces, and monitors. Once money becomes programmable, it stops being yours. Central bank digital currencies are the next evolution. They provide full visibility, full influence, and full extraction capability. Every transaction will be logged, every purchase profiled, every savings decision predicted. Behavior can be shaped, monitored, and controlled. Restrictions can be applied automatically based on social status, spending habits, location, or government policy. The debt machine is reaching its end. The numbers are impossible. Currencies are eroding. Public trust is fading. And the new system is being built to ensure dependence, to automate extraction, and to make resistance nearly impossible. Debt no longer exists merely as money owed. It has become the operating system of society. It thrives on silence, confusion, and consent. It shapes lives, controls behavior, and siphons wealth invisibly. Awareness is the first defense. Understanding is the second. Preparation is the third. If you want to see behind the curtain, to understand the hidden mechanisms shaping our financial reality, stay informed. Question what seems normal? Observe the cycles, because the next chapter of this story is already being written, and most people will not see it coming until it is too late. The debt machine continues to run, but now at least you know it exists.